He invites you to the table inside, right now. He is already at the door. And that door is the entryway to the very life you have been hesitating to invite him into. Not the room you keep ready for company, not the section you would show a visitor on a tour. The actual hall where your true self lives. Stay near him these next minutes. Before this short message ends, he wants to show you why he has chosen to come to your heart on a day you did not feel prepared. And he wants to place in your hand one line a small tax collector heard once with his own ears when he crossed the threshold of a house no respectable rabbi was expected to enter. A sentence meant to silence in this very hour the small voice that has been telling you that the one who heals does not enter homes like yours. He does not knock and wait. He knocks and enters the moment you breathe. The words come in. He sees you. Listen closely. The kitchen light stays on a bit later than it should be, and the woman of the house has set a cup down between two unfinished sentences because something deep inside her chest has been asking a question her mouth has not let surface. A father stands in the hallway between the bedroom and the front door. And he has been pretending for so many seasons that the strange heavy weight he carries from room to room is simply tired. A grown child has returned to the childhood home with bags and a story that still does not have a name. A widow walks across a floor that holds the echoes of two sets of footsteps, but now holds only one. A little one has been hiding in the small room at the end of the hallway, embarrassed by a hunger for him that her friends would never understand. Not one of those hallways is hidden from his eye. Each lamp burning a little late, each talk that ended before the real words were even spoken, each played safe or an option that had never arrived. Every detail of their heart has been recorded on his side. The friend who used to ask about the inside of their house stopped asking, not because she stopped caring, but because the answer began to repeat. A morning conversation with him has grown shorter, not from indifference, but because the gap between the home they imagined they would have by now and the home they actually live in began to feel too wide to name. Bills stacked on a counter. A relative who did not call. The diagnosis whose paperwork has been moved from drawer to drawer all year. The marriage that has been quietly tilting toward a wall neither of them knows how to discuss. The child whose silence at dinner has begun to sound like the silence before a leaving. None of those small shadows around their table have escaped his notice. He has been watching the porch lamp flicker. And he walks up the steps. He is not arriving for an inspection. He arrives because he loves this hall. The dishes do not need to be done before he crosses the threshold. An argument from earlier in the day does not need to be resolved. A hidden corner they have been afraid to show to anyone does not need to be tidied. A guest worried about their housekeeping is not the kind of guest the Lord is. He is the kind who walks in and asks where the bread is, because the meal they are about to share matters more to him than the polished surface around it. They open both hands in their lap palms, facing up. Just that, they notice how much of the day they have been holding things. A quiet pause. Keys. Glass. Fond shrug. The invisible list of what they owe the people in this house and how rare it is to let the palms simply be open. An open hand is the most sincere prayer their body can offer a visitor. It is the posture of someone who is no longer arranging the household for company, No longer reaching for a defensive task, no longer gripping the weight that has been on the counter all season. They receive him through palms that have stopped working for one breath. The welcome begins in the hand before it reaches the words. Fear of his visit did not build itself together inside them on its own. It was inherited the morning a parent's moods arrived at the front door like weather, and their small body learned that a guest crossing the threshold could change the temperature of every room. It deepened the season. A religious teacher described his visit as a kind of audit, a divine inventory of every fault in the kitchen and every dust in the hidden corners. It was reinforced over the years. A relative used the language of his presence as a tool to shame the rest of the family into compliance. It was sealed the afternoon they welcomed a person into their living room who they thought brought safety, and only discovered too late that they had been carrying something else. Each of those crossings left a small instruction in their nervous system. Do not open. The instruction has been running for years. Every time a footstep approaches their door, even when the footstep is his. Not one of those teachers was him. A few of those teachers loved them sincerely and were passing on the picture of God they themselves received from a hand whose love was bruised. Others used his name as a hammer because a hammer was easier to wield than tenderness. Either way, the same false image of his visit was set on the counter of their soul, and they have been trying to keep it polished for that imaginary inspection ever since. Keep that drawing on its side. Slide it under the rug. Let him describe the way he actually arrives inside the home that is actually theirs. Somewhere early in their lives, a quiet belief took root. The homes he enters are those that earn his visit. A voice taught them, perhaps without intending to, that his presence is a reward for households already in order, clean marriages, polite children, calm finances, the kind of family album where everyone smiles together on the same page. A voice taught then that his footsteps cross thresholds where the host has the right speech rehearsed, the right posture practiced, the right prayer memorized. A voice taught then that his visit was a price for the home that needed it least. But that voice is not his. That voice has never been his. Hearts most pleased to host him through the ages have been the ones with crumbs on a table and a small child crying in the back room. Wealthy halls with marble floors did not detain him longer than the small house with the patched roof where a tired mother set down whatever bread she had. A fisherman's kitchen impressed him more than a courtyard of fine ones, a leper's room more than a banquet hall, the widow with 2 coins in a chipped clay jar than the priest with abundance in a polished cup. His pattern across generations of crossing thresholds has been remarkably consistent. The houses that imagine themselves least worthy of his presence were almost always the ones he prepared his evenings for, so they can drop the worry that the version of their home today is not the version that qualifies for a divine visit. There is no qualifying version. There is only a heart and a host who is brave enough to quietly say, "Come in." The bravery is not the prerequisite. The quiet saying is, "Sit back into the chair instead of leaning forward." Just that. Observe how much of their body has been bracing toward the front entry, as if preparing to apologize to whoever crosses through, letting the chair hold them, letting their spine yield to what is behind. The room is steady. The walls are not falling. The visitor has not come to grade the housekeeping. They can receive him from a body that has stopped auditioning for the visit. That is the only body he has ever known how to be welcomed by. The wound in some of them runs deeper than fear of an inspection. A few of them have begun to suspect in the quietest hours of the household that the long stretch of difficulty inside their hall is itself the verdict, proof that he has already passed by their address and chose the home down the road instead. Then, a small thought has been circulating in the back rooms of their interior sentence by sentence that the families who feel his presence must be families he loves more, and that the silence in your kitchen has been the sound of him moving on. He is lifting that thought right here. He has not moved on. He has not passed your address. He has been walking up your steps for years. The silence you took for absence has been the soft pause between footsteps and knocks. The pause is over. He is at the door, a note for the one of you who has hidden a particular hunger for him from everyone around the table. Music continues, because admitting it felt like it would be one more thing for the household to manage. The hunger is not foolish. The hunger has been the lamp on the porch for the entire stretch. The hunger is how a host knows the visit is real before the guest is visible. He has been seeing the lamp from far down the road. He has been walking toward it the whole way. There is a particular scene he has been carrying down the generations for you. It belongs to a story whose echo has outlived every empire that tried to bury it. This story belongs to anyone who was ever told the divine guest does not enter their kind of address. It belongs to anyone whose name showed up on a list of people considered unwelcome at God's table. And it belongs especially to the small souls who have been climbing higher and higher into the branches of their own leaves, just to catch a glimpse of him as he passes, secretly certain he would never stop and call their name out loud. Hear it now. Picture a short man named Zacchaeus in the dusty streets of Jericho, a chief tax collector, wealthy, despised, a traitor wearing fine sandals collecting Roman tribute from his own people. Never invited to weddings, no welcome near the front of any synagogue. His entire village had quietly agreed, whatever heaven was, his name was not on the list. A deep hunger he couldn't name made him want to see the Lord as he passed, pushed to the back of the crowd by taller bodies. He did something shameful for a man of his status, climbing up into a sycamore tree just to glimpse Jesus from the branches. The Lord stopped under that tree. He lifted his eyes. He called his name. Then he spoke the words no one expected. "Come down, because I must stay at your house." The crowd gasped. He has gone to be the guest of a sinner. They were defending their image of God they had grown up with, but that image was wrong. The Lord entered his home. Jesus sat at his table. He did not enter to scold or begin with a list of violations. He came simply to share a meal. Something shifted during that dinner. Without prompting, the short host stood and made a promise no one in town ever expected him to make: half of his wealth to the poor, fourfold payback. A quiet pause to anyone he had cheated. His presence had reordered an entire life. During the short time of a single meal, this change did not start with a sermon. It began with a guest crossing a threshold the whole village had marked as closed. Jesus responded with words that have outlasted every empire that came after. This is what he declared. Luke chapter 19 verse 9. Today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. Let us walk through this slowly. Rushing makes us miss what is folded within these holy words. Today. Look at the timing. Not eventually. Not someday when he has cleaned the rest of his money. Not next year when he has earned back the trust of neighbors. Today. His salvation arrived in the same hours as that holy visit. Elsewhere, scripture puts it this way: Behold, now is the favorable time, and that now is not poetic. It is a literal truth. The salvation that entered that home. He did not wait for proof of improvement. It arrived right at the doorstep. Salvation. The word is wider than our hearts have been allowing it to be. Most people have heard of salvation as a courtroom transaction. Guilty, declared innocent through a legal arrangement, happening somewhere far away. But the word is bigger. Salvation in the language it was spoken. Originally, carried a deep sense of wholeness, rescue, healing, where body, soul, and household are all made well at once. What walked into that home was not only forgiveness, it was true healing, a healing starting deep in the soul and spreading outward into their finances, their marriage, their children, even the floor under the table. That is what he came to bring to their doorstep, not a mere transaction in a distant office. A wholeness beginning at the entrance and working outward through every single room of their house has come. Listen closely to the verb. Not that it is about to, not that it might, if conditions are met. It has come. The arrival is already in the past tense when he is speaking it. His visit and salvation are the same event. Salvation did not require the host to produce it later through his own labor. It walked in with him. The host only had to receive. Amen. Receiving his grace showed up later as restitution and generosity. But salvation itself came before the response. Oda matas. The visit comes first. Transformation comes after. To this house, notice the address, not to this synagogue, not to this temple, not to the council of religious experts in the city center. To this very house, salvation is delivered to the address of the host, not to the address of the institution. Remember what he told his friends: wherever 2 or 3 gather in his name, he is there in their midst. And the gathering does not need to be official. A kitchen counts. A bedroom counts. A car parked at work counts too. The address that matters is the one where the host says, "Come in," however softly. That address right now is yours. Since he also is a son of Abraham. Listen to that last clause. An entire town had crossed his name off the family roll in their minds. The Lord restored him to the family with one sentence. He is the one who decides who belongs in the family. Not the village, not the crowd, not the religious experts, not the friends who stopped calling. Not the parent who said you had drifted too far. Not the spouse who said you were no longer the person they married. He is the one who knows whose child they are, and that divine truth remains unchanged even long after the village forgot. Through another voice in a letter to a small community far from Jericho, the Lord once promised, "Believe in the Lord Jesus. Listen, and you will be saved, you and your household." That gentle promise stands right beside the Lucas scripture. The Lord placed in their hands the salvation reaching the welcoming host never stops with that person. It spreads through the entire household. A child in the next room is reached by a divine visit that began at the parents' front door. A spouse asleep in bed is reached by a visit their partner received in the kitchen at midnight. Even grown children far away are touched by a prayer whispered under the breath at a table they have not sat at in years. One yes from the host opens a path the entire household can be saved through. Let's circle back to the promise made. When this message first began, the Lord promised to show why He has chosen to visit their house on a day they did not feel prepared. And here is why. Because being prepared was never a requirement. The small host in the tree had not prepared. The crowd murmured because absolutely no one in that town believed he had earned the visit. Yet he came to him in his branches. Anyway, though he was too short for the crowd with a reputation far too tarnished for respectable company, he comes to them in the chair they are sitting in on an ordinary day, with a household they have been embarrassed to show anyone. Worthiness is not theirs to earn. The visit is his to bring. Their only move is to come down from the branch, walk to the door and open the latch. A quiet word about that latch. A door of this kind only ever opens from the inside. He has respected that latch for the whole of their life. He refuses to break it. Love does not break locks. Love waits at frames. Power without consent is something other than love. So the latch waits on them, and this wait is not a delay caused by his slowness. It is a courtesy required by his character. His visit is fully ready. The host is the only variable left. So here is something small they can carry into the rhythm of the next stretch of ordinary days. The next time they walk into a room of their house, kitchen, bedroom, doorway, between two rooms, they pause for the length of one breath at the threshold, just one, laying their hand briefly against the frame, if they can, then saying, inside themselves, or quietly aloud, one short sentence. The music fades. Welcome in. 2 words, that is the practice. Welcome in. They are speaking to the Lord, yet they also retrain the very inside of their home to expect a warm visit instead of an inspection. The doorway gets used to swinging open with those welcoming words. The room learns to receive a guest who brings no threat. The home begins to feel like one that hosts the one who heals, rather than a house bracing against the one who judges. Nothing very dramatic happens the first time they try this. Even the 10th try may pass with no obvious shift. Inside, a home that has been bracing for scrutiny over many years does not relearn hospitality in one afternoon. Around the 30th threshold, they will feel that the bracing has loosened in ways they had not tracked. Around the 50th, they will catch themselves walking into a room and sensing before saying a word that the room is warmer than it used to be. Around the 100th, they will realize they have begun thinking of the rooms as shared with a guest who has been quietly making himself at home, not moving the furniture, not reorganizing the closets, simply present, like a gracious guest settling in the place he has been invited to stay. If these words have deeply touched the hidden heart within them, they can write welcome beneath this video, not as a hashtag, but like a small lamp on the porch of a home they were afraid to admit, always waiting for his company. Right above where they read in the pinned spot 7 short letters. Wait, ready for them, one to greet each morning of the week. They can open their inbox once a quiet surrender unlocks the door completely. to receive them. For some believers, their marriage has felt for many seasons now like two people sharing the same house without ever meeting. Listen closely. His presence does not require both of them to be ready at the same time. 1. Welcoming heart is enough to begin. The salvation that came to that house in Jericho entered through just one person, and the entire family was saved. Open the door. Let the change in their home begin from their end of the table. The other spouse will feel the warming of the room long before either of them names what is changing. There is another room inside some of them. The room where their finances live, which has become a place they have started avoiding completely, silently. Hear him also. He does not enter that room with a ledger. He enters it just like he entered the tax collector's finances, quietly, sitting at the table first, building friendship first, letting the reordering happen as a fruit of friendship rather than as a condition for that bond. He asks us to open that door too. A lamp on the desk does not need to be switched off when he walks in. No papers need to be hidden. Numbers do not scare him. They are not why he came. He came to be close to the host. The numbers will be handled the way he dealt with them in Jericho. After the meal, not before it. A different hallway exists inside the bodies of some of us, and that is the room we are most ashamed to invite him into. Think about it. Because of an illness or an addiction, a weight, a wound, a story we cannot believe a holy guest would ever step inside. Listen to this closely. Our body is the first room he enters. Our body has always been first. He formed it. He numbered every hair on its head before its very first breath. He has not been waiting outside the door of our body for it to become presentable. He has simply been waiting because love always waits. He asks us to open that latch to the healing that Jericho did not stop at the soul. It spread outward into the lens, our appetite and how we walk, the way the host handled his coin purse. That same generous spread is what he brings through your front entry. Your body is not the embarrassing room. Your body is the room he came to share supper in. A parent among you has now stopped praying out loud over a child who walked far from him because the grief got too sharp to articulate at the table. Hear him. His visit reaches the child through the household even when the child is not in the house at the moment. A transformation in Jericho reached people who were not in the room where supper happened. Fourfold restitution went to neighbors who had no idea in their mourning that the man who had defrauded them would be making them whole by sundown. The visit you are about to receive will reach the child whose chair has been empty. A corridor by which it reaches them is not for you to meet. The corridor is his. Open the door. Let him handle the corridor. A religious authority has told some of you that your house is the kind that disqualifies you from a divine visit, that the divorce, the past, the orientation of someone you love, the doctrine you have privately doubted, the way you raised your children, the way you have failed to raise your children, marks your address as one he will pass by. Hear him clearly. He walked into a house in Jericho that an entire town insisted he should not enter. The crowd was wrong about who he visits. The world has always been wrong about that. He does not consult a village before he crosses a threshold. He consults the host. If the host says come in quietly, so low only he can hear, he comes in. The list any village keeps does not